Hey, what's up everybody? Today we're going to be talking about 5-HTP, basically a nootropic that's great, but I found a very interesting study that I really want to share with you that I just think, wow. I'm really curious about these findings, and I really want to share with you guys as far as the benefits when it comes to 5-HTP, using it for something like ADHD, and this is where the study has focused on. And so this is a series that I'm talking about, so let's get started right after this intro. Hey, welcome back, my Alto Mind performers, my Alto Mind leaders. Dr. LeGrand here. I grew up with ADHD and dyslexia if you are new to this channel. And so today I want to talk about specifically a study that I've been actually reading and diving in more depth. And this is a series that I've been doing, a series of videos of nootropics. And today we're talking about 5-HTP, that is a great nootropic for ADHD or also other improvements for other mental health such as anxiety and depression. But I want to talk about a study today about how they used it for ADHD. So this study, it's a pilot study. So kind of preface a pilot study. Basically with a pilot study, they're usually trying to get a good sample size to test it out, to see if this is something that they should continue to further pursue. Now in this study, they had 85 children that had ADHD, and it was a mix of both boys and girls. About, I think, roughly 30 girls, and the rest were boys. Now, the other interesting thing is they had a good combination of people who had a history of taking medications, which was a good portion. About 67% had a history of taking ADHD medications. And then there were some who had never taken ADHD medications. And then I think roughly 10% that were still taking ADHD medications. So it had a good variety of basically looking at the differences as they were implementing. So what they were specifically wanting to do is pretty much use a precursor of aminos to basically serotonin and dopamine. Now, if you don't know, serotonin and dopamine is basically what is lacking in our chemical brain when it comes to ADHD or other mental health issues such as depression and anxiety. So dopamine and serotonin, specifically dopamine for ADHD, when you're taking a medication, what it's doing is basically blocking the reuptake of the dopamine. So what that does in the brain essentially is when you are not creating enough dopamine in your body, essentially that's what people are suffering when they have ADHD, the medication will block that reuptake. Because what the reuptake does when it's kind of communicating back to the brain, saying, hey, you don't need to produce as much dopamine, you can slow down. So what the medication does is it stops that process. So the brain and the body think, okay, keep on producing more dopamine. So you start getting that, more focus, more better mood and stuff like that when it comes to ADHD medications or a lot of other mental health types of medications. So what they want to do is they want to try to improve neurotransmitters. And how to improve neurotransmitters is, of course, the precursors, the aminos that actually build the serotonin, dopamine, and other neurotransmitters that are really important in our body chemistry. And 5-HTP is definitely one of them, as well as L-DOPA are essentially the precursor aminos that help build serotonin and dopamine. Now, things also like L-tryptophan and L-tyrosine are also the precursors to 5-HTP. So by implementing this, they use a combo of 5-HTP as well as L-tyrosine, these types of supplements to implement as these kind of precursors. So this was actually an 18-month study, which is really cool to see that they did an 18-month study with these children by implementing it. And they still had a combo of people who weren't on medications and were also on medications or had a history of medications. And the really interesting finding that I saw in this, and also compared to other, because there was a double-blind study. They also had a placebo, group and stuff like that. They, just like with any kind of other research study. And comparative to other things as far as other ADHD medications, such as like Ritalin, out of the whole group, they had a 77% significant improvement in relief of ADHD symptoms. Wow. Compared to like some of the other studies, so they did some comparison studies from other research. Whereas like people who take methylphenidate, which is, a very common type of medication you take with ADHD, it was about a 67% relief in 100%, relief in ADHD symptoms. Which, again, this is only a pilot study, so I would need to see a bigger sample size than just 85 people, 85 children. But to see that, that's promising. To be able to use something like 5-HTP and like L-tyrosine, which are precursors to our neurotransmitters, because what also was interesting in the study, what they found with the people who were taking medications and also had a history of medications, those groups actually had a higher significance of improvement than the group that never have taken medications before. And I find that fascinating because in their discussion, they talked a lot about, it's a possibility that when you're taking medications or have a chronic history of taking medications, there's definitely been a lot of debate around this, is it can deplete you of a lot of neurotransmitters in your body, because your body tends to, if it's not producing it on its own, or naturally producing on its own, because that's what it's doing, it's blocking the reuptake. So when you're taking that medication, and then of course over time, neurotransmitters are not being produced as much throughout the body. And so you tend to be depleted. So somebody who's had a history of taking medications and also medications would actually essentially probably find bigger benefits with taking the precursor amino acids, such as 5-HTP and L-tyrosine, like they were doing in the study. And that's what they found, that those actually groups had a higher percentage of having improvements versus the ones that did not ever take medications. So it's very interesting. It's something that, something to think about for sure. And I've used definitely 5-HTP for myself and for also my patients, and L-tyrosine, those types of amino acids, and I do find improvements for sure. But it's cool to kind of see that there's pilot studies that are starting to implement these things that could be potentially something that actually could be implemented along with medications or even without medications. But of course, there needs to be more studies done around this. But it's something maybe you should ask your doctor about as far as, implementing other amino acid precursors to neurotransmitters that can give you those benefits, such as using 5-HTP or L-tyrosine. And this is, it's really cool to kind of see this. And I just wanted to share this with you as far as what the benefits of 5-HTP can do for your ADHD. And I hope you guys found it valuable. Now, if you're looking for further guidance when it comes to what types of supplements, nutrients that you should be implementing for your ADHD and what foods to avoid, as well as what foods to implement, as well as what labs to run for your ADHD, I do have a free downloadable guide that you can download in the description below for both adults with ADHD as well as parents who have kids with ADHD, and that's the description below. So until next time, this is Dr. Legrand signing out, and remember, you have an optimal mind. Thanks. Bye.